Well, I started out as a Christian at 6, and at 54 I met Sai Baba. He said to me, I said, "Oh, Baba, I pray to know that you and I are one." And he was very, very sweet, and he leaned forward and he said, "You will." How did he put it? Wait, wait, wait. It could happen in a moment. Mm-hmm. So I'm waiting for that moment. I hope it happens before I die. I'm so grateful for him, because in January of this year, he healed my uterus, which Dr. Gooey, our attending physician, said was rotten. It was really bad. One day I had it, the next day I had the interview, and the day after that it was gone. I mean, the uterus wasn't gone, all the problems were gone, and it was rising.
Sounds like you've had more than a couple interviews with Baba.
A lot, yeah.
And why are you so favored?
I'm not favorite, believe me that. He's given me my share of knocks and whacks and slaps, and he hits me on the head sometimes very hard too, you know, and I think, well, maybe he's kind of moving things around up there. Yeah. I've seen tears in his eyes one Christmas. Mm. He was up on the balcony and we were singing Joy to the World, and there was tears in his eyes and in ours too. He's just amazing. Amazing.
अखंड ज्योति जलाओ साई मन मंदिर में.
Joyce Barker-Moller is a Canadian follower of holy man Sri Sathya Sai Baba. This longtime devotee is a writer, traveler, and a gifted resource in her ability to recall countless first-hand experiences with Sai Baba himself. Welcome to Souljourns. This interview was recorded in Sai Baba's ashram, Prashanti Nilayam, in Puttaparthi, India, in 2004.
अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ.
Good morning.
Good morning, or Sai Ram as we say in India.
Just tell me about those 3 things on your altar, first of all.
Well, I started out as a Christian at 6, and at 54 I met Sai Baba. So I had to come to grips with the 2 in my thinking and feeling life, and it took a while, but eventually I realized that there was no difference. And when that happened, I was able to help other Christians to get over the mountain of that same problem. Mm-hmm. So I use both. I read the Gita, I read the Bible. I don't read the Quran because it's just a little more difficult for me. But all religions, Baba teaches, are one, the religion of love.
And how many of your Christian friends have just a little bit of difficulty with that?
Well, it isn't so much my friends, because I seem to be the only one when I went through school and when I grew up, I never see a face that I recognize from the past here. But I've met some wonderful people from all over the world, all different religions, all different cultures, different colors of skin. And we have a bond, and that bond is Baba.
Mm-hmm. And in your 50s, how was it precisely that you came to know Sai Baba?
I had a very wise teacher that I took classes from for 20 years. And for 20 years, she never told me she was a Baba devotee.
20 years?
20 years. She said she believes that education is pulling out of the person instead of pushing it in. So when we were ready, then it appeared. And in the course in philosophy, she recommended one of Baba's books. I didn't know who he was. And eventually I got around to reading it. As soon as I read it, I wanted to come to India. And I had a dream, and within a year of that dream, I was on the plane.
What an unusual
Halloween.
teacher. What an unusual teacher. What do you think she meant by trying to pull out of her students rather than to push
Well,
in?
it's the real meaning of education. Is to not, everything is within. We all have all the answers to all of our questions inside. We have to learn to pull it out. And Baba teaches us that by going within. He calls it going within.
Is she still with us? Is
She just passed away a year and a half ago.
Was she happy to learn of your awakening towards?
Well, I was still under her guidance, and it wasn't until that I said I wanted to go to India, that she even told me that she had been here twice, and that she wouldn't tell me her experiences until after I got back. But when I got back, she said that the first time she saw him, Baba was in form, and in front of her he was pure light, and then he moved into form again, which is the real Baba.
So she had an exceptional experience.
Well, she was an awakened soul anyway.
Yeah. What school was this that you had this Baba teacher for 20 years and nobody knew about
It was called the Re-Educational Center, which I thought was kind of an interesting play on words, because truly that's what it was. I mean, the answers were inside, but through years and years of studying everything from the mind and relationship, the mind and the body, and the different religions and philosophy, science, and it was done in a subjective way, so you weren't memorizing things. Dr. William Marcus Taylor was the 1920s author.
Here's your wonderful teacher teaching Baba for 20 years without ever once mentioning his name. You, now a devotee from that class, went on to become quite familiar with Baba. I'm going to take a stab and guess that you're probably the only one, the only student maybe the school's ever had who's a Baba devotee.
Well, some of them made some stabs at it. And you know how the Bible tells you, that some seeds are put onto rocky ground and no soil, and some are put on soil and there's no rain, and all the things that happen. And for some reason or other, I guess Baba says we're all chosen, He says we are chosen to be his devotees.
But why do you suppose it is that so many seem to be placed on rocky soil? I mean, that's a judgment on my part, I know. But
I think it has to do with karma, and I think it has to do with past lives, and not necessarily this life. In other words, there's a book I read recently called Journey of Souls, Life Between Lives. And though I've studied these things for years and years and years, I'm always picking up a book that's giving me something new. I'm dumb, really.
You're still the student.
The more I know,
You're not dumb.
the more I know, the more I know. I don't know.
Well, your teacher taught you that lesson. You know it all already.
That's true.
Just find the can opener and try it out.
That's true.
Can Baba be that can opener to you on any given day? Can he be that piece of sandpaper that...
He has told me that he will.
Oh, he hasn't roughed you up yet?
Oh, he's roughed me up a lot. Oh my goodness. I don't know what rough up is until you talk to me. But it's been a slow process, little by little, because it's been since 1988. So I've had lots of rough ups.
Yeah.
But he said to me, I said, oh, Baba, I pray to know that you and I are one. And he was very, very sweet, and he leaned forward and he said, you will. How did he put it? Wait, wait, wait. It could happen in a moment. So I'm waiting for that moment. I hope it happens before I die.
In the meantime, between 1988, this moment, and the moment you die, any flagging of interest, of enthusiasm, of spiritual steel in you?
Absolutely none.
Wow.
No. I knew the moment I read the first book that this was what I was searching for. If Jesus had been alive, I would have walked around the world to find him. And here is an avatar. And I don't know why, I just knew. Just knew.
Okay, to the man on the street who's never heard Baba's name, why are you so sure?
It's an inner knowing. It has nothing to do with education or great ideas, or it's an inner knowing.
It helps along the way, doesn't it, to have a few life transformative experiences, healings, and I understand you
had those from the time I was little.
Yeah.
Because I don't know, I really believed in healing, and I had healings.
And what about since '88?
Had lots of healings.
Anything in particular that you want to share with us?
First interview, he healed me of rheumatism on my lower legs.
And that
so
went
I could
away.
sit. Just got up and that was it. Felt like I didn't have legs.
I'm 6'3", going on 6'4", and I have no difficulty sitting here. I always amaze myself about that.
That's one, you're very lucky. Because after that, then I got not rheumatoid, but it's a form of arthritis. Osteoarthritis.
Okay.
And there's no cure.
But he cured you.
But he cured me. And he did it with a letter I kept holding up during... I was really just fed up to the gills. I couldn't get up and down the stairs, and there was an orthopedic surgeon in
This
my
wasn't in your mind, this was in your body, and it was real.
Oh, yeah. I had just arrived, and of course I'd been going for years, having a little more difficulty to pick up things, and bend over and pick up things. That was kind of an effort. And, but I didn't pay any attention. But he orchestrates this whole thing. The minute I got to Prashanti Nilayam and I had to come up 3 flights of stairs, I was in agony.
Yeah.
And I had just interviewed 2 women for one of the books who had had healings, and I thought, why not me? Mm-hmm. So I wrote a letter, sat in, in darshan, didn't leave for breakfast, sat for 4.5 hours, and every time he'd come across the veranda and looked my way, I put the letter up like this, And Baba knows everything. Believe me, he does.
You know before you wrote it.
Oh, well, probably. Well, I don't know. I think you have to do some effort.
You do?
Yeah.
Oh.
I'm not sure, but...
How much effort?
I mean, well, there are millions of people in this world, and if he's going to focus on you, he knows everything about you there is to know. I've found that out. But anyway, so I got up after 4.5 hours, and I thought, this is going to be a lulu. And there was absolutely no pain. And I thought, well, I'll wait till I get home and see what happens. And I was so, I just walked on air home and got home and came up the steps, and maybe I'll wait till tomorrow, just to be sure, The next day, it's never come back. So, and then the last one he did with this healing, Japa Mala, was just beyond comprehension. I can't even, I'm so grateful for him, because in January of this year, he healed my uterus, which Dr. Gui, our attending physician, said was rotten. It was really bad, and I was going to have the operation up here at the local hospital. Mm-hmm. I'd rather have it here than at home, though 2 years ago I was going to have the operation.
And home is? At
home in Vancouver, British Columbia, Canada, but Baba wouldn't take my letter that time. And I was really getting angry at him, because for 5 weeks I kept holding this letter up. He'd take a letter on this side, and then he'd go over my head and he'd take a letter on this side. What more can he tell you? He's not going to take it. So I went to visit this doctor and his wife, and he said, well, what was in the letter? I said, well, I was asking if I should have the operation. He said, obviously, he doesn't want you to have it. So he wrote me out a prescription, the name of the doctor, and he sent me up to the...
Dr. Gui?
No, this time, the first time, I didn't know her. And they said, well, women, it's a prolapsed uterus, and it's troublesome, but Indian women at this degree of difficulty ignore it. They just ignore it. So I thought, well, if they can do it, I can do it. And so for 2 years, I ignored it. But when I came back this year, the first of the year, excuse me, I have the hiccups, they examined me, and it was Dr. Gui this time, and she said, when something is rotten, you take it out. It was really bad. So I was depressed, and finally decided that that's what I would do. Told her, we had dinner that night. She made the arrangements for the ultrasound, the bladder, and all the blood tests, and to meet the doctors and so forth. And next day, I wrote the letter and went in for, no, I'm getting it backwards, but it doesn't really matter. The important thing is, one day I had it, the next day I had the interview, and the day after that it was gone. The uterus wasn't gone, all the problems were gone, and it was rising.
This is well documented, well established for several years.
Yeah.
And Dr. Gui herself, who's world renowned, I'm sure, she's beautiful, told you it was rotten.
That's right. That wasn't very technical, but she figured I'd understand that, and I did. So we've become very dear friends, and I went up about 2 weeks ago just for a check, because I'd come back.
Sure.
I went home in February and came back in October. And he just doesn't say anything to me, this is the funny part of the whole thing. I said, well, what is it now? And she said, you forgot your piece of paper. You didn't bring it. She says, I charge 250 rupees to patients who don't bring their paper. I said, I'm really sorry, but I just didn't think about it when I came. So she said, well, you were 3rd degree prolapse when I saw you. And after the 2 days later, after the interview, it was 2 degrees prolapse, and now it's 1 degree. And the 2 gynecologists sitting there said, "You'll never have any trouble with that." So I mean, what more can you ask for?
Yeah.
I'm just very, very grateful to God.
You mentioned a couple of minutes ago that he knows everything about you. You know.
Oh yeah.
How do you know?
Because he tells me. I have a dream, only 1 dream in 6 months. I go in and tell him. The dream was that I ask him in the dream, what is wrong with me? And I didn't mean physically, I meant mentally. You know, what is wrong with me? What do I have to change? And he went on and on and on. And when
This
I
is
woke
in your dream?
in the
or-
dream,
Okay.
in the dream. And I couldn't remember a thing he said when I woke up. Just that the mouth was going.
Mm-hmm.
And I thought, oh my gosh, I must be terrible. What, all these things, I can't even remember a thing. I went into an interview 6 months later and I asked him about the dream. And I started to ask him and he says, no, all good. That was it. So, and I have dreams that I know I'm going in for an interview and I do go in. He knew my son was in trouble. He helped him, his house burned down, and in the rubble were 3 covers of my books with Baba's picture in the rubble. I mean, he knows everything, everything.
If he's with you, if you and he are one, why do you not stay in Vancouver permanently?
People ask me that. I can't answer that question. It's like a pull of a magnet.
What about the people who can't afford or otherwise, because of health reasons or whatever, can't come here? Sometimes do you think they maybe feel, well, maybe I should sell the house and move there just so I can afford to be in his presence once?
I spend my time encouraging people like that to realize that how fortunate they are, because they are forced to go within to understand God. And with us, we get attached to the form, and eventually, of course, he's been trying to wean us for some time. And when I was just a baby, I was weaned, and I threw every glass bottle out of the crib until they were all gone, and then they had to put me on a cup, because I don't want to be weaned from the form. But I know it's a necessity, and it's happening very gradually. And
You think that time is coming?
oh, it's been coming. I've been working on it for a long time. But this is different. If I hadn't had all these experiences, what would I write about? I've written 6 books about Baba. What would I write about?
You've got a couple of them right here. I'd like you to just pick
The
them
children's ones.
Yeah.
Oh, well, I wrote 3 adults and 3 children's, and I'm writing 1 adult book now, and I'm writing 1 children's book now. So it seems to be...
And why do you do both? Most people do one or the other.
Probably because of the fact that I was a children's librarian.
Oh,
And at the
okay.
beginning, I didn't want to look at another children's book when I retired.
A Baba story.
Yes, they're all Baba's.
Who did the
stories.
illustrations? Oh, just
Baba-
page through it like
Baba's
that.
children in the elementary school.
Oh,
It's about a rainbow, and so every color is a different color of the rainbow. And there's a foreword that gives the dickens to the parents so they will smarten up and take good care of their kids. And then the children's pictures. Now, this little boy, this book is just his, is a special thing because he's from the Himalayas, and he fell and died. And he
the
did...
little boy who did this picture.
Yes, and the teachers, the principal just says, this book is for him. This book is for him. And they were so good. They drew the maps well. They colorful. Their imagination. These children are different. They are very, very special. They really are. They have no TV, no newspaper, no blaring radios, no advertisements, no outside influence of all the nasties that go on in the world. They just love God.
So you've done 2 about children?
No, 3.
3, you said.
The
Okay.
other one comes out in about a week.
Okay, and then this one, oops.
I got it upside
There you
down. To begin with, this one is when Grandma goes to India, the first one.
Mm-hmm.
Grandma goes to India, and she brings back these stories for her
So are you
granddaughter.
grandma on this?
Yeah, yeah. And so I signed it Grandma Joyce. And this one, she takes the granddaughter to India, which is just wonderful. I would love to do that. It's still a dream yet.
Might you?
Well, Baba told me to bring my granddaughter back with me last Christmas, and she didn't come with me.
And why was that?
Well, I think that my family doesn't understand me and Baba.
I was going to ask that. That's always a question I make sure I
Yeah.
ask everybody. Why do you suppose it is that of all your siblings, parents, loved ones, family members, neighbors, and co-workers, so few, if any, seem to latch on to your passion about Baba?
Well, I don't talk about it, for one thing.
Well, you live Baba.
I know,
They
but
know
I don't,
something's
but I
going
don't
on.
proselytize.
You don't have to, but they know you come to India.
Oh,
you live in India.
and I give them a book every year when I write a book, whether they like it or not. And eventually, the little ones, you know, I've been able to read the stories to the little ones, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised if they peek at them.
So my question again is, why do you suppose they don't comment or challenge you or ask questions
Well,
or criticize you?
they will, because
Is it scary?
Baba, no, they don't criticize me. If they do it silently, behind closed doors. I told him I really wanted, you know, my family to come to him, and he leaned over very sweetly and he said, "They will. I just don't know when." And I hope it's in my lifetime, but it doesn't really matter. I'll hump them if they don't come.
What about the adult books, books for adults?
There are a series of everything that crossed my path. About the third interview with him, I asked him if I could write about him. And he put his hands up and he said, "Always hurry." So I got to thinking about it afterwards. It was true, I was always rushing from one appointment to another and always, you know, was always busy, 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 busy. And I always wanted to hurry things along. So before I left the room, though, after the whole interview was over, he said, like he'd never heard me say that, "You like to write?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "I give you a job." So I ended up writing for the little newspaper that was for Westerners here on the ashram.
What happened to that?
Well, it got too big and cumbersome, and the Sanatana Sarati, you know, was the real organ of the place. So
Did you to write for that?
no, he just said, "I will give you a job," and that's what happened. So I started to write for them, and I wrote and wrote and wrote on little scribbles on little pieces of paper, and, you know, in Darshan and wherever I happened to think about it. And when I got home, I thought, gosh, why don't I write a book? And then I went back in time as to how I met him and everything that happened. But all during that time, I wrote about everything that went on in the ashram, all the festivals, all the impressions, the people I met, crossed my path, all had wonderful stories. So they're filled with people's stories and my stories and whatever else happened to drop into it at the time.
What else is new? And by that I mean you've been coming here now for many years. You spent much time in Baba's sphere, let's just say. And yet a couple of minutes ago you said that you continue to learn things. What have been some of the things within the recent past?
Well, let's take one thing, anger. You
Never been
can.
angry before, I bet.
No. Anger keeps cropping up, and it will keep cropping up for years and years and years and years in different experiences until you deal with it.
And how do you deal with it?
Well, I deal with it the way I learned, and that is to ask myself, why do I feel that way? When did I feel like that before? And you just keep pulling the threads back and find out where your original anger was, and then you deal with it, with your mind, with your intelligence, with your intellect.
So if you use all those things to process it on a regular basis when it pops up, why don't we become good students one day and learn
Quickly?
quickly? Nip it in the bud.
Well, it would be nice if that happened, but you think, you know, oh, I don't have any problems anymore. And then you come to Prashanti Nilayam and you find out that you do have some things you have to look at still. And this is a perfect place to do it because you've got Baba with you, and it's wonderful.
Do you ever get lonely?
I don't think so. I remember the first Christmas I spent here away from my family. And I was in the Christmas play choir. And when I was finished, I came home. I don't think there was anybody in this building but me. And I sat down in front of my picture of Jesus and Baba, and I opened my chocolates and ate them. I made hot chocolate, and I sang Christmas carols at the top of my voice, and nobody even knew it. But I had a wonderful time. I wasn't lonely. No.
Yeah, we're almost in Christmas week, and
I
I don't
know.
see too many snowmen outside or Christmas scenes.
True.
It is an adjustment for a lot of people.
Yeah. But it's the most beautiful Christmas anywhere. I've been in the Christian church for years and it's wonderful, but here is something really special.
Now, I think I know the reason for that, but for anybody watching this who's never put the two together, Christmas and Sai Baba, explain it.
Well, for one thing, he does this with all religions. Any special festival, he does. We all celebrate everything, absolutely everything. And when Christmas comes around, he wants the Christians to do their thing. And the children are in the plays, and the parents sing in the choirs, and we just have a special morning where we are together singing to Baba. And I've seen tears in his eyes one Christmas. He was up on the balcony and we were singing Joy to the World, and there was tears in his eyes and in ours too. He's just amazing. Amazing.
I'm going to keep those tears going for a second. You've told me before about your wonderful relationship with your now departed husband.
Yes.
How does he process into any of this?
Well, I think he's come back again.
Where is he?
Well, it doesn't really matter because he's gone on to something better. But you know, after reading this book that I told you about at the beginning, it helped me to understand a little bit how they can be around, and yet when you need them, but they have gone on to better things. Different steps. I'm taking different steps down here. He's taking different steps in another realm.
Do you talk to him?
No, I don't anymore. I went through a year of grief, and I'd sit at 10 o'clock at night in front of the candle, joy tea meditation, and that was my time, my only time. And I'm telling you, that candle just leapt to the ceiling.
Did it, really? You're not saying figuratively, you mean literally.
I mean literally, yeah. I knew that the connection between the three of us was there.
Is Baba Jesus?
I started to say is Jesus Baba, because I don't think there's any difference. It's just a different form. I was taught when I was a student to help those who had lost someone. And I would say, now, take ice cubes out of the freezer. And what is it? Well, it's frozen water. Now put it in a pan and turn it on the stove. And what does it become? Water. And leave the stove on, and what does it become?
Steam.
Steam. Water, a form of water. And it's the same way with us, with our life and our death. It moves. It's all the same, but it just moves on. And then remember, it comes back again as water from the clouds. So it's a circle of life and death.
The bravest people I know, I believe, still have a fear of death. You?
I think that the survival is a very strong instinct in people. And that when you're in a dangerous situation, I just close my eyes and say Sai Ram, and then the car's gone. They pass the Indian taxi that I've been riding in. And I've done that for years. And I wake up with my smile on my lips, and all these people in the look absolutely stricken in the taxi next to me.
We said Sai Ram too late coming here in our taxi. He had a motorcycle with two people on it, and they went flying. They fortunately got up and walked away. Okay.
Oh my gosh.
It's these life events sometimes come out of left field with no warning.
Yeah. But I think I've changed my ideas of death, and many times, especially the first book, I was meeting people all the time with death experiences. Parents dying, children dying, and so these interviews were helpful to me as well.
And when did you become familiar with this book, Between Lives, that's helped you so much?
A month ago. But there's always a book that helps me. There's always something that comes in my path at the right time.
I sometimes liken this place to a river that's got all sorts of high currents and driftwood, and old tires come careening down the stream and run into big rocks and the embankments. And that we see this and choose to jump into the stream when you're here at Prashanti Nilayam.
Even before, my teacher used to say, get your feet in the water, go with it, go with it.
Seems to
life.
be faster current here, though.
I think you're right. I think that everything is speeded up.
Both good and bad.
Yeah, well, it's all good.
It's all good.
Baba said to me the last interview, he said, everything I give you is good. The bad I take. So,
And I know people who make an argument that suggests even the bad is good.
well, it is, because it's a lesson to be learned. I've always learned that you look behind the person that's giving you all this trouble to the lesson they have to teach you. And once you have learned the lesson, the person becomes like a docile lamb.
That's pretty smart. Were you always so smart?
No. I think those 20 years of study with my teacher were remarkably helpful to any person.
When somebody gets your goat now, how long does it last before you're able to put your Baba thinking?
As soon as I can get away from the situation,
So you don't let it
right away.
simmer for
Oh,
days.
no. It has to be done very quickly.
What's the future hold for this planet with our 6 billion people, only a tiny fraction of which knows anything about Baba or even sees his life modeled in you and other people?
About 6 years ago, he said in 5 years everything would be changing. And
That's soon.
oh yeah, this was I wrote it in one of the books because it really jumped out at me. And when I think about it, I don't think we have any idea how much we have been saved. They say an avatar comes when things are really bad. And at the time I came in '88, they were worried about atomic off the earth,
Yeah.
gone.
Either between India and Pakistan or China, Russia
Yeah.
and the U.S. or
Yeah. And I believe that he came for the very purpose of helping us to know who we are, what it's all about.
But such a tiny handful of people seem to be destined to carry out that work.
I don't think I don't think he needs us to carry out his work. I think I'm privileged to be able to write books about Baba. He doesn't need another Baba book. He's got lots of them out there.
What about the people who say that, oh, Joyce, yes, I know Joyce. She's like 3 other friends of mine who have gone away to find a special teacher, a guru. Joyce calls this teacher an avatar. And she's quite happy, and my other friends are happy. There must be a lot of good teachers around the world, and that's their thing, and staying in Vancouver is my thing.
Well, life has lots of choices. When I was ready for my teacher, the teacher came. And when I was ready for the avatar, he was there. And these people may have to go through many lifetimes before they have the same joy that we have had. I think we're the luckiest people on earth to know Baba.
Those who know him. And those who know him, love him, and for whatever reason sort of walk away. What's the message or the lesson there, do you suppose?
Well, Baba thinks we're all the same, we're all equal. He treats us all the same, whether you're a murderer or you're a priest. He treats us all. I've watched him in interviews. I've interviewed people who've had interviews. And he is so sweet and so loving with everybody. And love changes people. So the more love we spread, the more we're doing his work, really.
You're a young lady. What are you going to do with the rest of your life?
I'm not that young. I'm going on 75 in March. So I think that if he hadn't taken away all the things he's taken away, maybe I would still be here. But he has for a purpose of which I do not know. And I do a lot of talking whenever the opportunity arises around the world, whenever I'm traveling. I just love it. It seems to be the way I can express the joy of Baba.
I think the world enjoys having bridge people in their lives, the world of humanity. And by that I mean perhaps watching this videotape maybe 5 years from now, somewhere in a basement pub in Vancouver, for all I know. You might send this videotape home to a family member and it gets passed along to somebody who's sitting on the fence of having a yearning curiosity to know more about their own spiritual pursuits, but have never heard of Sai Baba before or this path that you're on. And there's, goodness knows, tens of millions of people like that right now. Without necessarily proselytizing, because Baba doesn't want that, how do you help people like that?
Well, I find that if I'm an instrument And I think I am, and a lot of other people are instruments, Baba's instruments. That I don't plan anything. I seem to know when to speak and when not to speak. Sometimes you just don't say a word about Baba. You know, they'll notice this ring, and they'll say, "Oh, that's a beautiful ring." They've done that in London Drug.
Baba gave you that ring?
Baba made this in 1990.
Looks like a diamond ring to me.
Yeah, it is. And the lady said, "Oh, that's a beautiful ring." And I said, "Oh, yes, thank you. It was a gift. It was made by Baba."
Your hand as close as you can to the camera.
Yeah.
There you go.
And so
Oh, that's a
she didn't know what I
beautiful
meant by, she had no idea what I meant by Baba, or he made it. And I never saw her again, and how will I ever know? Someday maybe she'll pick up a book and know. Then he made this one with Ganesha. And both these rings were different rings, and then he changed them to what they are now. So, I
What do
mean,
you mean you changed them to what they are now?
yeah, he does. This one I found a ring at home under my commode, which is an old-fashioned piece of furniture. And it was Indian. It was the 5 different metals, and I knew it was the 5 different metals. And I had not had an Indian person in the house at that time. I'd been to India once. And so I took it to the center and went to a jeweler who was an Indian jeweler. He says, yes, it's Indian. And so I brought it to India with me. And in the interview, I put it over this finger, and I just waited to see what he was going to do. And he said, "What have you got there?" And I said, "Did you leave this in my house?" And he did like he did before. This dark cloud in his hands up. "Don't ask." So I thought, okay. But I left it there. And we went in for a small interview, and when it came back out, and I still had it on the finger, and he said, "What do you want me to do with it? Change it?" And I thought, oh, I could see another one, because this was the second ring. And so he did. He blew on. He said, "Do you like Ganesha?" And I said, I sang for Ganesha's birthday just before, 3 days before I left. So I said, "Oh yes, he removes obstacles." That's all I knew about Ganesha. And so he blew on it 3 times, and it was silver Ganesha. And when I got outside, there was a lady who was just a little bit jealous. I'm sorry to say that.
Maybe just a woman, too.
Yeah. And she said, "It doesn't look like silver to me." And I whipped it off and looked inside, and he'd written silver.
Ah, is it in there?
Yeah.
Or is it worn off?
No, it's still there. I never hardly take it off. I don't know if you can see it or not, but it was very obvious that he was doing what he said he was going to do. And she never questioned me again after that.
Okay, I'm looking. I see it.
You see it? And the other ring.
1 second now.
Okay.
In front of the lens one more time. And now when he changed this, as well as the other one, did he do it within his hands, or did he do it openly so you can see? I know he does it both ways.
I thought I was going to catch him once, and I was right under his hand when he changed something, and I didn't see a darn thing. I mean, it just happens. This was he made a flat ring with his picture on it, silver, inexpensive one. And I was delighted. It was my first interview, and I was so happy. I was crying. And he said, "You like?" But my thought was, and he picked it up, how am I going to explain that fuzzy-haired, orange-robed man at work?
Yeah.
So he took it back, and the young fellow that was with us was sitting on the other side with 8 other men, and I was the only woman in the room. And he said when Baba blew on it 3 times, he said it gold, diamond, he said he could see the brilliance coming through Baba's 3 fingers, just coming through. So it is a mystery, an absolute mystery. Baba, you can't ever understand him. Don't try.
Sounds like you've had more than a couple interviews with Baba.
A lot, yeah.
And why are you so favored?
I'm not favorite, believe me that. He's given me my share of knocks and whacks and slaps, and he hits me on the head sometimes very hard too, you know, and I think, well, maybe he's kind of moving things around up there.
It literally smacks you on the head.
I need a little, no, pat, my goodness. I mean hit, like that, you know. And I watch him with the boys, and he's so gentle with the boys, the students, you know, he sort of pats them. A little bit of a whack, but not much.
Met a man last year, earlier this year, from England, who had his first interview after being in Baba's fold and having come here for 28 years. say something about people who really do feel envy, who want what you have, and come here and do all the pujas, and they do everything that they believe Baba asks.
And
of them.
guess what? I see somebody going in for an interview and I feel jealousy. I really would like to be going in. I'd like to be in every interview, a mouse in the corner, just watching. Don't have to talk to me or look at me. I just want to be there. None of us can get enough of Baba. It's an addiction, and it's the only addiction we're allowed.
That's a good addiction then, huh? Mm-hmm. Can't be harmful to you?
Definitely not.
How about withdrawal pains?
I used to have those when I'd go home, and it's all part and parcel of development. It's very slow. I mean, I didn't have all these things happen. It was a slow process.
Why aren't you tempted to tell all of Vancouver and the rest of the world about Baba?
When he's ready for me to, I'm ready to do it. Because I have a friend in the Vancouver Public Library who said she'd be very happy to have me come in and do a lecture there. But I don't know when is the right time. I don't know. I mean, I'm just not sure. It has to be Baba.
Isn't it human nature to want to spread the joy?
Well, you can put people off by doing so. I did that when I was young in these classes that I took, and I thought I knew all the answers, and I was telling people what they should do, That went over like a lead balloon.
How will you know the right time when Baba says?
It's just like knowing it's time for me to come to India. There's just some movement I can pick up the phone and make a reservation for whatever month, and that's it.
Family members, loved ones aren't concerned about you coming halfway around?
They were. My poor husband, the first time I came, he didn't hear from me for 3 weeks.
Was he a Baba guy?
Oh, he didn't know anything about Baba. I didn't know very much about Baba either. Well, here I was. And at that time, in '88, I didn't know, where to go to make a phone call. I just didn't know the ropes, so I just stayed with the Italian group that adopted me and stayed in the ashram.
Did you come by yourself?
Oh, yeah. I'd never gone across the street by myself before.
And you got on an airplane from Canada and came to India?
Yeah, alone, and it was scary. But then I was adopted, you see, so when you're adopted by a bunch of Italians, I mean, what more do you want? They fed me homemade pasta every night and answered all my questions, and they were just wonderful.
We've been adopted by a living angel here, Lakshmi Narasimhan, who's the registrar of the Sathya Sai Institute.
Yes.
And you feel like you're okay.
Yes. Baba took very good care of me the first time. The second time was a little more rough. But then I had my sea legs, you see, so I wasn't quite so seasick.
All right, as we wrap this up, look into the crystal ball and tell us about two things. Where humanity is going to go in the next year or so, since we're up to year 5, almost year 6 now, of what you think you understood Baba to say about the changes coming soon in the next 6 years.
I don't try to interpret his words because I find that everybody is doing that and they're all different.
Yeah.
But I will say one thing, and I forgot to mention. Before I left the interview in January, he said, "You will have a long and healthy life." So I intend to be here and see these changes. Mm-hmm. My great-grandmother lived for over 100, and I wouldn't be a bit surprised that I'm there. So I don't know what it's going to be, but I can hardly wait to find out.
And what's going to happen if those who side with the theory that Baba is weaning us away from him,
From the form.
from the physical form, are right, and perhaps this year or not too far into the distant future, we see him once a week or once a month because.
Or maybe a speck in the sky in a helicopter.
Yeah.
I mean, he's given that impression.
How much
eventually
will that affect or damage people's faith? Yours.
No, by that, the whole point of the thing is that he's leading us like a carrot in front of a rabbit. We just keep, going a little further. He gives us a little bit of encouragement because he knows what's going to happen. We don't. He knows us inside totally, and we don't. Mm-hmm. And he knows our weaknesses that have to be overcome before we're ready for this tremendous change that's going to come. And when that time comes, I read something in a book that I think is just beautiful. He said there will come a time when your picture will be in the puja room, on the altar.
Whose picture?
The picture of the individual, Baba's devotee, and that the family will honor that because of your involvement with Baba.
So your nieces and nephews and grandchildren will one day look at Mary, Jesus, Baba,
And Joyce. Because we are all God.
Oh, it must make you feel pretty good too.
Yes, because right now there's not much communication about that, but in time they're going to realize. That's why I think I wrote all these books. They're going to have a record.
That's why we're doing this, for posterity's sake.
And I want to interview you.
That's against the rules. Joyce, thank you very, very much.
You're welcome. Sai Baba.
Sai Baba.
अखंड ज्योति जलाओ साई मन मंदिर में अखंड ज्योति जलाओ साई मन मंदिर में अखंड ज्योति जलाओ साई मन मंदिर में अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ कोटि सूर्य सम तेज स्वरूपा सूर्य सम तेज स्वरूपा साई तुम हो दिव्य स्वरूपा साई तुम हो दिव्य स्वरूपा अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ दिव्य ज्योति ज्ञान ज्योति प्रेम ज्योति जलाओ दिव्य ज्योति ज्ञान ज्योति प्रेम ज्योति जलाओ दिव्य ज्योति ज्ञान ज्योति प्रेम ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ साई मन मंदिर में अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ कोटि सूर्य सम तेज स्वरूपा साई तुम हो दिव्य स्वरूपा अखंड ज्योति जलाओ अखंड ज्योति जलाओ दिव्य ज्योति ज्ञान ज्योति प्रेम ज्योति जलाओ ज्योति जलाओ, अखंड ज्योति जलाओ, अखंड ज्योति जलाओ, साई मन मंदिर